Masuk, boleh masuk. Ayah, masuk.
Good morning and welcome to the
Ayah.
Good morning and welcome to the judges, teachers, guests, and participants of FRSIS 2024. Now, I would like to introduce our judges today. The Chief Judge is Mr. Muhammad Firdaus Muhammad Isa, Head of Department Corporate Communication Department Idaman Sediran Berhad. The second judge is Ms. Adila Ahmad from Sekolah Menengah Sultan Abdul Halim. The third judge is Ms. Cassandra Charles Gimpa from SMS Labuan. And I, Alia Shifahana binti Abdul Rahman from Sekolah Menengah Sains Muar. While the timekeepers, Ahmad Ryan bin Muhammad Haris and Muhammad Akmal Izani bin Hilmi are from Sekolah Menengah Sains TUNKU Site Putra Perlis. Now, allow me to read the rules. The first one, each team should consist of presenters and a technical assistant. The second one, the presentation must focus on the sub-theme assigned to the team. The third one, the duration of the presentation should not be more than 10 minutes. The fourth one, the bell will be rung once at the 9th minute and twice at the 10th minute. And finally, a question and answer session will be conducted after each presentation. Now, I would like to invite the first team, Sekolah Menengah Sains DUNGUN, to present.
The climate has getting warmer. What is the reason? The popular reason is global warming. But what is the cause of global warming? And what is the relation between global warming and fashion industry? Assalamualaikum and a very good day. Firstly, I bid to all respectful judges and all the lovely audience in this room. Today we'll be presenting about fast fashion, the effect of unnecessary clothes to the climate. So first of all, what is fast fashion? So fast fashion is widely considered to be low quality apparel produced rapidly to follow current trends in the industry and sold at rock bottom prices. And to make it simple, fast fashion industry is an industry that produces clothes rapidly and sold at a low cost for people to follow the trends. But is there something wrong with it? I think it's okay. But the problem started when the fast fashion industry actually released 10% of carbon dioxide to the air, contributing to global warming. How? So the heat is trapped at the atmosphere and it's leading to global warming. So, moving on to the data analysis. As you can see here, the most released greenhouse gases is from textile production, and this just prove that fast fashion industry does contribute to global warming issues. Hence, it is our duty to first identify which global warming contributors that is being normalized nowadays, which we already identified. It is the fast fashion industry. The second one, we want to spread awareness about the hidden dark side of fast fashion and the effects of global warming. And the third one, we want to provide the possible solution to this problem through fast fashion industry. Now, moving on to how does global warming affects the world climate?
But before that, I would like you guys to see this video clip. As you can see, this video shows the record of heat wave change. But how can such drastic changes become of the heat wave happen? Well, this is because this is one of the effects of the global warming. Besides that, these are two other effects of the global warming that could affect human civilization that we are focusing on. The first one is the rising of sea level. Well, it is common to relate rising of sea level with global warming because with the increases of global temperature, it will melt down the iceberg around Antarctica, around the Sea of Antarctica. And this is the main reason the sea level increased. And the second one is health risk. with higher temperature with higher global temperature, it will cause any kind of disease such as heart stroke, heart attack, and other worse health conditions such as kidney and lung disease. And that's for data analysis.
Now, I shall show you guys our findings. This is this graph showing the data analysis of rising of sea levels. As you can see, from 1993 until 2021, there has been a lot of increase in rising of sea levels. Well, it has been reported that sea levels are rising on average 3.5 millimeter per year. And this image you can see here is the image of iceberg at the North Pole. From 1979, the glacier has been melted a lot until 2022. In these 40 years, there has been a lot of meltdown of the glacier. But what in the next 40 years or maybe 100 years, there might be no living creatures anymore at the North Pole. And this could be the future image of our world, where the buildings are being drowned by the water. And next, I shall show you the data analysis of health risk. Well, it is reported from 1998 to 2017, there is reported that more than 166 people died due to heat waves. And in 2022, 230,000 infections and 303 deaths have been caused by dengue were reported in India. Now, you guys may ask, what does dengue and heat wave relations? Well, it is reported by BMC Public Health Organization. They have made a study that says that in the rising of temperature in heat wave, there could be also a risk, also increasing in the risk of dengue infections. Well, a fun fact, 1 Celsius of increase in high temperature could also lead to 13% of increasing risk of dengue virus. And as we all know, heat wave can also cause air pollution. Well, air pollution has estimated to be responsible for approximately 5 million deaths worldwide in 2017, while the majority of it, which is 70% of which being caused by outdoor environmental air pollution. Can you imagine? We have to live in an environment which have polluted air and have to breathe the air in our lungs. Next, this is our research methodology. We use qualitative method. Now, our online research shows that in 2100, there will be estimatedly over 410 million people are predicted to be at risk from rising sea levels. Other than that, drought can lead to decreased water quality and quantity and increased incidence of illness or diseases, increased mortality rates, and adverse of mental health outcomes. So now, the main question here is how to solve these problems.
Thank you for your question. But before that, I want to make it clear. This problem solving is not how to overcome the global warming. Instead, this is the problem solving to overcome the cause of global warming, and that is fast fashion. The first one is reducing trending clothes purchases. Did you know fast fashion industry didn't replenish their sold out clothes? Instead, they replaced their old items with new item but with different styles. This will make their old clothes look outdated and unfashionable, making people want to buy new clothes every day. And the second one is by supporting thrift shop and second-hand shop. These places are the two main places where people sell their unwear clothes. And for me, this is a good way to reduce clothes waste production by selling your unwear clothes to one of these places. Because when you sell your old items, people will wear it again and again. And lastly, by wearing your clothes longer than 9 months. Why 9 months? Because according to our research, wearing your clothes longer than 9 months could reduce the carbon footprints to 30%. But what is carbon footprints? Carbon footprint is a measure of carbon dioxide released to the atmosphere as a result of our daily activities, such as what type of car did you drive? Did you take public transportation? Or how many cars did you drive in a day? And lastly, is the conclusion. In the conclusion, the rising of fast fashion industry indirectly meaning an increasing rate of carbon emissions, which contribute to greenhouse gases, resulted in global warming, subsequently leaving a big impact towards the human civilization. And that's all from us. Thank you.
I would like to invite participants to ask questions. Now, I would like to invite the judges to ask the questions.
Okay, thank you for your question, for your presentations. It just, you are talking about fast fashion, how this may cause for the climate. Is there any any evidence or any ideas on the upcycling of the clothes?
Pardon me, can you please repeat the question?
Upcycling. Yeah, for the clothes in order to prevent it from the climate. Or if you have it, you may relate it with any of these concepts at the circular economy or EPR, extended producer responsibility.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, this question is, since you're presenting regarding the fast fashions, I would like to ask you in terms of upcycling initiative in order to prevent it from the climate. Yeah. By the way, do you know upcycling? Turn it into a new things, upcycle that again. Just an example, from the plastic bottles, we can turn it into a new jersey instead of you using new threads to produce clothes. So from the clothes, maybe can we upcycle it to a new things, so we can eliminate or reducing the process in terms of waste disposal to the landfills. Okay, so if you have any idea on upcycling, okay, that is number one. Second, if you have any idea how to support this initiative via the circular economy or extended producer responsibility initiative by the global, which is now it become a pressing matters in the global arena.
So the first question that you asked, that is there any way to upcycle the fast fashion clothes, right? So actually, these fast fashion clothes are made from things that could harm the environment. So I think rather than supporting the fast fashion, we could buy the original clothes, which is the sustainable clothes, rather than supporting the fast fashion, because fast fashion is normally being used and it is produced from the things that can harm the environment.
In terms of the greenhouse effect, you mentioned that in your study, I think I saw about 10% in terms of the carbon, right? So may I know, is there any relevant or any figures for Malaysia in terms of the carbon emission? How can we calculate this carbon emission through whatever project that you are proposing?
Actually, we use online research, and we found out about the 10% of the carbon dioxide emission. We just used an online research, actually. I'm so sorry.
All right, this is regarding citation. All right, we see numbers, quite a few. All right, previously, if you go to your earlier slide, can you like name a few citations where you get your information from? Articles or journals or anybody or anyone or any resources relevant that you can cite? Because I see quite a statistic being up, but it's not cited.
Well, most of our research is actually based on online, but it is made by scientists that wrote the journal or articles. So I think it is trustable source.
All right. Hi, and a very good morning, presenters. I have a very simple question. All right. What efforts can be done to encourage the public to buy more second-hand clothes? Okay.
So actually, I think the society didn't aware about this fast fashion industry, and they didn't realize that they are indirectly supporting the fast fashion. So what can we do is we spread the awareness to the society about the fast fashion, and we introduce them a few brands that are fast fashion industry, so that they would know and they would buy from that brands anymore. Does that answer your question, Miss?
Thank you for the informative presentation.
Yes.
Now, let's hear from the second team, Sekolah Berasrama Penuh Integrasi TEMERLOH, to present.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and greetings to the honorable judges, teachers and friends. Today, my teammates and I will be discussing an issue about the deadly Australian fire, a catastrophe on human civilization. Before we start, we would like to introduce ourselves. I'm Muhammad Anushai, and besides me is Abdul Azim.
I'm your Ami Safira.
And I am Rahani.
What are exactly the impacts of the deadly Australian fire to humans, animals, plants, and the environments? Our main issue today is how exactly Australia impacted climate change through the bushfires. Our first objective for our topic today is to examine the effects of the bushfires on Australian civilization. The next objective is to discover the impacts of the bushfires on the global climate, and last but not least, is to deduce what we can do to slow down the changes. Methodology techniques that we used were thorough research and articles, numerous case studies, and countless interviews and videos. We conducted our study based on this problem statement. Australian bushfires in 2019 to 2020 threw up so much ash into the air that it resulted in a cooling of the southern Pacific and hence a La Nina climate phenomenon. For continuing our discussion today, I would like to call Anu Zafira to deliver his speech.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what is bushfires? A bushfire, as the name suggests, is a fire that ignites and spreads in the bush. Do you know what causes bushfires? A bushfires can be caused by arson, lightning strikes, human activities, hot temperature, low humidity, and open fire. For Australia, their bushfires were often caused by its own extreme climate, which is too hot and dry. In 2019 and 2020, some reports indicated that a changing climate contributed to the ferocity of the fire with hotter, drier conditions, making the country's fire season longer and much more dangerous. The fuel for a fire was greater than normal, and the bushfires combined to become mega fires, generating their own weather and spreading fire further. Do you believe if I tell you that the large bushfires in Australia all this year have been one of the contributing factors in changing our climate? In 2019, there are a terrible bushfires in Australia known as Black Summer bushfires. This was considered the worst wildfire disaster in modern history. More than 3,000 homes has been destroyed, more than 70 million hectares of land have been burned, and 33 people had lost their life. This map showed the area of the bushfires. Here, we can imagine how enormous the bushfire was using the satellite image system, because even from afar, the smoke of the bushfires could be seen clearly. In actual fact, Australian fire was a lot more enormous than any other fires. Now, I will invite Rahwani to continue with the effect of the bushfires on Australia.
Thank you, Auni Zafira. Because of the bushfire, there had been some effect on Australian civilization. Firstly, there were agricultural impacts on Australia. The pie chart shows the percentage of crop loss due to the rising temperature because of the bushfire. Queensland is the most affected state, suffering significant crop loss and being one of the worst areas during bushfires. Secondly, there has been a shift in public attitudes. The fire had caused increased anxiety and emotional damage, leading to a rise in health risk. Next up, the ash from the fire has landed all over Australia, as well as in water catchment. This led to increased nutrient concentration, promoting the growth of cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae that can cause various water quality issues such as poor taste, odor, and toxic chemicals. Fourthly, over 1 million species are at risk of extinction. Severe weather events such as mega fire are exacerbating the challenges for species survival. This loss is concerning as it disrupts the natural system that we depend on for food production. Next, Australian infrastructure has been damaged, and that impact extends to industries such as farming and tourism. Some businesses and institutions have been forced to close their doors during periods of excessive levels of air pollution. Finally, mega fires cause physical harm and significant mental trauma. Evacuation and the loss of homes, pets, belongings, and livelihood can have a profound impact. Sometimes, due to the loss of electricity, fuel stations were inoperable and roads were blocked, trapping people in high-risk areas. These experiences can lead to lasting mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder across affected communities. Now, I would like to invite Azim to continue the presentation.
Yes. Not only in Australia, the bushfire effect have also extended to the global world. The map illustrates that Australia's bushfires alone have emitted as much CO2, also known as carbon dioxide, as half a year's worth of emissions globally, contributing to the thinning of the ozone layer. What you see right now is how the bushfire affected our climate by creating pyrocumulonimbus clouds. The smoke plumes from the bushfire rises, and when it cools down, clouds are formed. It led to the forming of a thunderstorm. This is how the catastrophic Australian bushfires in 2019 to 2020 contributed to ocean cooling thousands of miles away, ultimately nudging the tropical Pacific into a rare multi-year La Nina event that dissipated only recently. Because of the La Nina event, intense rainfall in Southeast Asia has led to devastating natural calamities such as deadly landslides and sudden flash flood. These are some of the images to give you an idea about what happened. Because of the natural disaster, intense collateral damages have happened to many countries. For example, Malaysia have experienced losses of 6.1 billion in ringgit, while in Vietnam, total damages and losses increases every year from the flood. Not only in Southeast Asia, the continent of North America was also affected by the bushfires in the Southern Pacific, resulting in a very severe winter storm in 2021. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration officially documented a 26.5 billion losses in damage in the United States from the winter storm. As you can see, the drought in the Horn of Africa worsened because of climate change. The 2020 present Horn of Africa drought is an ongoing drought that hit the countries of Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. The natural Although most of our research is based in Australia, this discovery is important as it demonstrates the potential impact of one country on the world. It raises the question of how much worse the situation could become if all countries on the world contributing to changing our climate. The sad fact is that we can only mitigate climate change and not stop it completely. Now, I need you to ask yourself, the future leader of our nations, to ask yourself a question. How many more lives will be affected by our selfishness, by human selfishness? How much longer do we have to wait before it reaches the point of no return? As we all know, human activities are one of the lead causes of climate change. That is all from us. Save the world. Thank you for listening.
I would like to invite participants to ask questions.
Yes.
Alright, Assalamualaikum. My name is Dinesh Wafi and I am from Sekolah Dato' Abdul Razak. So from your presentation, I'm sorry if I'm not paying attention or such, but I don't think I see that you are giving any solutions or recommendation from any governing body to resolve this issue. So I would like to ask, do you know any or more specifically, what has the Australian government done to resolve this Australian bushfire issue? Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
So for the solution, actually, Australian government has established an agency called the National Bushfire Recovery Agency, which initial $2 billion that that recover for this, for the damage that happened because of the bushfire. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I would like to also add, okay. So if that is the thing that the Australian government has done, I would like to add, like you said, if it is a major global problem since it has affected Asia and South America, so what has the global governing body done to resolve this issue? Because it is not on Australia, but rather on other countries. So like what other country has done to stop this?
Pardon, could you like repeat the question? Like,
So simplify. So basically, like since we know that the Australian government has done something to stop this, but has other countries stop the effects from the Australian bushfire from affecting their country? Like you said in your presentation, the Australian bushfire will have an effect such as landslide and such to other countries, right? So what has the other countries that has been affected done to resolve this issue?
As we all know, Australian bushfire was sudden, and we didn't think that the effect at that time, at 2021 and 2022, would be affecting, the bushfire will be affecting in the long run. So at that time, the countries can't do anything but watch as the natural disasters happen. All right, let's just imagine Australian bushfire have started butterfly effect. What is a butterfly effect? For example, a person that come to a social gathering can get to know each other. For example, getting in a relationship, getting work opportunities, such as that. The idea is that the small thing can impact into can go into a bigger things. So, but what we were hoping for the global global population is to the global population is to make use of the 3R, and that is reuse, reduce, and recycle. Because even if one person do that, the changes of it will be significant. Alright. That is the answer that we can come out for now.
does that answer your question? All right.
Now, I would like to invite the judges to ask the questions.
Okay, just a simple questions. Mention here in your abstract, by changing our habits and supporting environmental friendly policies. Let's say this thing happened in Malaysia. So what are the best practices in terms of changing our habits and supporting environmental friendly policies?
So you're saying that Malaysia.
As a Malaysian, the smallest changes that we can do is whenever we go out of home or school, we can switch off the electricity to reduce the consumption of gases such as carbon dioxide or chlorofluorocarbon that used by air conditioner, such as that. And another thing that we can do is to we can do is that we can divide the trash into their own categories. So, for example, in the 3R, recycle, one of the 3R is recycle. We can, for 3 types of category is plastic, tin, and wood. All right, that's all from us. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you for the interesting presentation. Please pay attention. This is a reminder from the Chief Judge to all participants to stay calm during your presentation. Now, let us welcome the team from EDU Global Senior High School Bandung, Indonesia. Please share your screen and get ready for your presentation. I think they are ready, and without much ado, let's hear from our friends.
Alright. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain amma ba'du. Greetings everyone. I am Raihan and I will be your moderator for today's session. We are from Edu Global Senior High School in Bandung, Indonesia. Today, we will be discussing about our research topic, analyzing the current government plans towards solving Jakarta's flood. But before that, I want to introduce our team first. Firstly, we have our beloved mentor and supervisor, Sir Ihsan, and then me, Raihan, as the moderator. After that, we have Badar as technical assistant, and then we have Kirana as reporter, and last but not least, we have Keya as presenter. Now, I will give the mic to Keya to briefly explain the background of studies. Please, Keya.
Okay, thank you, Raihan, for letting me to speak. Firstly, I want to show you the song from Indonesia with some lines that are related to our issue, especially the last two lines. The water overflowed far away and finally to the sea. These lines from Bengawan Solo by Gesang Martohartono is relevant to our research, which it tells about the river that connects the sea in Solo, where Solo is in the highlands, and Bengawan Solo connects it to the ocean in the lowlands. However, in Jakarta, it is actually the opposite. Bengawan Solo does not apply in Jakarta because the sealand in Jakarta is higher than the city of Jakarta. Do you know that Indonesia's capital, that is Jakarta, is sinking? Jakarta is one of the most populated cities in the world and currently sinking at an alarming rate, posing a significant threat for the citizen of Jakarta. The sea level rise issue needs to be addressed quickly and effectively. According to the WEF, most of Jakarta will probably be submerged by 2050. There are some causes of Jakarta sinking. Start with the main cause. There is global warming that caused by carbon pollution, melting the polar ice caps which increases global sea level. Then there is land subsidence that caused by overuse of groundwater which decreases the level of land on northern Jakarta. The natural condition of Jakarta's land lately is constantly moving and burning. Now, I will explain about the current official plans. So, to combat this crisis, the Indonesian government is currently building a giant seawall named Garuda Seawall with the project name NCICD, National Capital Integrated Coastal Development on Jakarta's coastal area to prevent further damage. Started in 2014, the seawall is planned to finish construction in 2040. Also, relocating Indonesia's capital from Jakarta to Ibu Kota Nusantara or IKN in East Kalimantan. This is aimed to solve the overpopulation in Jakarta and also advancing the eastern part of Indonesia like western part. Here is the timeline of the NCICD project, or commonly known as the Giant Seawall Project. After the massive flood that hit Jakarta in 2007 to 2009, the city of Jakarta desperately needs a better drainage and water management system. In 2012, the Indonesian government sought assistance from Netherlands to develop a plan to mitigate Jakarta's severe flooding. This collaboration marked the beginning of the Giant Seawall Project. Then, In 2014, National Capital Integrated Coastal Development, or the NCICD, began its official start with the construction of Phase A. Phase A involves constructing a dike along the coast on Riverside and on northern Jakarta, with Jakarta's coastline stretching around 120 kilometers. Phase A focuses on critical points, covering 46 kilometers. Phase A is scheduled for completion by 2030. Finally, in 2019, the Integrated Flood Safety Plan (IFSP) aimed to incorporate additional infrastructure into the NCICD, including water pumps, a powder system, and a water reservoir. This year also marked the planning of Phase B and Phase C open sea dikes. Phase B and Phase C involve the construction of open sea dikes in Jakarta Bay. These dikes aim to mitigate land subsidence by providing water reservoirs, reducing the reliance on groundwater. Construction of Phase B and Phase C are planned to start in 2030 and 2040 respectively. Now, I will hand over the mic to Kirana to explain objective and methodology. Please, Kirana.
Thank you, Kaya. Our research's objective is to examine the government's current plans towards solving the crisis and the critical response from those who live in Jakarta. We also intend to find the most effective solution, then pinpoint the best course of action or actions that we could take to properly combat the issue. This research utilizes a descriptive qualitative method to present knowledgeable information, perspectives, citizens, and expert strategies in response to floods and potential rising sea levels. We use Google Forms and Google Meet for interviews. Now, let's delve into the citizens' opinions regarding this issue. We received 60 responses over the course of a few days. The first question respondents were asked was, do you know about the issue of Jakarta sinking in 2050? Do you know about the cause of Jakarta sinking? While most know about the sinking, 5 respondents stated that they weren't aware of what is happening to their homes. It's important to note that because we interviewed citizens, their expertise on this subject may vary. The next question was, what do they think of the giant seawall? And just under half of the respondents think that the seawall will work for varying reasons. Most are of the opinion that there are certain benefits to the seawall, but the damage to the surrounding environment is not worth the trouble. Next, civilians were asked about their feelings regarding the second implementation the government has planned, ICAN. Even less respondents have faith in the relocation of Indonesia's capital city will have any positive impact or any effect at all on the issue of Jakarta sinking. Most state that the move to Borneo Island is not related to the problem, and after moving, Jakarta will still be the busy metropolitan city it's always been. Our last 2 questions were, what solutions do you think the government and the community can take to reduce the sinking of Jakarta? Answers to both vary drastically from person to person. On the first one, there are some that say that they think that the 2 plans previously mentioned are already great responses to the crisis. Quite a few think that the government needs to start developing other regions of the country, and some say that the government needs to play a bigger role in the climate change mitigation on the world stage instead of acting passive to the global crisis. Most respondents seem to be in agreement that citizens of Jakarta should at least attempt to live a greener lifestyle and minimize their use of groundwater. Next, I will pass the mic to Raihan to discuss experts' opinions.
Okay, thank you very much, Kirana. After doing survey to Jakarta citizen, we then conducted a couple interviews with a few experts in their respective area. After the interview, we can conclude that the giant seawall is effective, but it hinders a lot of factors. The giant seawalls need to be adjusted to a lot of scenarios. Economy, ecology, and social factors need to be well contemplated into this project. The giant seawall will hold the rising sea level. However, it is only a short-term solution where did not solve the land subsidence in North Jakarta in the long term. After that, relocation of the the Jakarta capital to IKN is not a direct solution to Jakarta's sinking issue. However, it is a strategic move to alleviate some of the pressure on Jakarta. And then, we asked the experts what difficulties will this project face. The immense scale of the decade-long project highlights the significant challenges involved in its execution and maintenance. Fundings and public opinion are the largest obstacle that this project will face. The sheer size of this project shows that it will cost a hefty price to construct. It is estimated that the whole project will cost around roughly 132.3 trillion rupiah or around 8.9 billion US dollars. After that, the court of public opinion varies between individuals. Misinformation and misinterpretation of the giant seawall purpose create a negative narrative around its implementation. Additionally, several other factors need to be considered, such as impact on the marine ecosystem, the effect on local fishermen, and the necessity of addressing land subsidence concurrently with the seawall construction. After this, Badar will take the mic to explain the solution.
Thank you, Rehan. So, what is the best solution to properly address the problem? The optimal approach to finding a solution is to consider all interconnected factors and devise a comprehensive solution that addresses all issues simultaneously. First, stopping land subsidence is the main solution. As we know, land subsidence is caused by the exploitation of groundwater. So with that in mind, we need to start by making stricter regulations and limit groundwater extraction. The next solution is educating the residents and businesses about the impact of groundwater extraction. Lastly, upgrading and expanding the existing water supply network to ensure the distribution of clean water and reducing groundwater extraction. The environment is also a very crucial part of solving the sinking of Jakarta. Restoring and expanding the mangrove forests around Jakarta's coastline to act as a natural barrier and protection against the coastal erosion. Also, the local coral reefs and marine ecosystems can be maintained by implementing conservation methods that ensure their habitats continue to thrive in the current sea level rise problem. A more urban solution is the multi-purpose deep tunnel. Multi-purpose deep tunnels are complex engineering projects aimed at addressing various urban challenges. The implementation of a multi-purpose deep tunnel could solve a number of problems Jakarta is facing. In addition to its primary function as a flood management system, a multi-purpose deep tunnels also serves as an underground road network, offering a solution to alleviate the high traffic congestion throughout Jakarta simultaneously. So in conclusion, the giant seawall project could be an effective solution with a number of benefits. However, it can't stand on its own in combating this crisis and protecting the people of Jakarta. By combining the seawall with a number of other projects, maybe then Jakarta can finally be unburdened from one of its many problems. The ending statement will be passed down to Rehan again.
Okay, thank you very much, Badar. The effect of climate change has shown its true form. Rising sea levels and flooding happens not only in Jakarta, but also occurred all around the world. Cities that reside next or near the sea suffer the same threat. That's why this issue is important to be acknowledged and needs to be properly combated. That's all from us. We express our greatest gratitude for your attention. Next is the Q&A session. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Q&A session. I invite the audience to ask questions. Now, I would like to invite the judges to ask the questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentations. Towards the end, you mentioned that there are three ways to overcome this by enforcement through the government, and second, through the public awareness campaign, and third, modernizing water supply system. So my question is more on the public awareness campaign. Let's say if you've been given an opportunity to embark with SEPA, community education and a public awareness projects, what are the best practices should be included under your SEPA initiative?
Sorry, can you please repeat the questions?
Okay, talking about public awareness campaign, normally in the global journals, most of the things we mention it as a SEPA, communication, education, and also public awareness. Since you mentioned that, I would like to know in details, or maybe you can describe further, under your public awareness campaign, what else, or what is your plan, or any solution for that by using this SEPA?
Okay, thank you for the question. I will answer. Okay, so for the public awareness campaign, of course, it will we inform all the public, citizen, businesses to about the effect of sea level rise and land subsidence, because it is important for us as citizen of Indonesia, especially on Jakarta, to know the effect and what's happening to our city or to our country. Uh, our plan is, of course, to to inform everyone from in schools, in businesses, and to local people, even on the rural side of Jakarta, on the side, and not only on the northern part of Jakarta. We also, uh, our plans is to give out uh, some kind of like poster or public awareness on television that will be aired all around the countries, not only in Jakarta, because like we explained on the presentation, that these problems not only occur on Jakarta but all around the world, especially on uh, northern part of Java. So uh, cities like Surabaya also and Solo also suffers the same threat. So our plan is to give out advertising and public campaign on televisions to inform everyone on the country that this crisis is important. Thank you.
Test, test. Hello, hi. Hi from Malaysia. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my question is, all right, Indonesia planned to build its new capital city in Borneo. Okay, you mentioned that in your research. Okay, so it has sparked concern among environmental and also human rights activists, okay, on the negative ecosocial impacts, right? So I'm curious to know what has the government, the Indonesian government has to say about this situation. Okay, was it clear? Okay.
I'm sorry, really sorry. Can you please repeat the question again?
Thank you, judges and everyone, for all the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our friend's presentation from Indonesia. Thank you for the interesting presentation. A gentle reminder to all audience, please stay calm and composed during presentation. Thank you.
Testing.
Test.
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 Test. Test. Test.
Test.
Now, I would like to invite Sekolah Sains Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Pekan to present.
Floods are a very common phenomenon in Malaysia. However, the frequency and intensity of floods have increased significantly over the last few decades, mainly due to climate change. Floods are the most frequent natural hazard in Pahang. Floods are the most frequent natural hazard in Pahang, and even though the effects can be extreme, they also can be minimized with the preventative measures that is right. So we, as the human being, should take an action on how to face and cope with the flood. But before I continue, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I bid to the honorable panel of judges, moderator, esteemed timekeeper, members of the hall, and my fellow teammates. Our given topic is climate apocalypse, a collapse of human civilization. Let me introduce you to our team members. So I am Humaira. I'm Afza.
I'm Adam.
And I am Umar.
So our research title is Flood Disaster Preparedness and Management in Schools. So basically, floods are a type of natural disaster that can cause heavy destruction to life and property. It is a condition when rainwater accumulates at a certain place, flooding that populated areas. Floods could lead us to the loss of numerous life, and it is highly dangerous and could it is highly dangerous and also could wipe off an entire village or city. From this definition, we can state that the research problem that floods are a global issue that affects by the climate change and need action and support by the national and international levels in terms of flood disaster management, particularly in educational, to reduce inequalities, which means all communities, regardless of race, gender, religion, and so forth, will not be left behind due to any disasters around the world. Hence, our research objective is to identify the challenges faced by the affected schools, namely SK Lemai and SK Kampung Aceh, in preparing, managing, and identifying the possible solution to manage floods vulnerabilities of the primary schools at the flood-prone areas in Pekan, Pahang.
Okay, we have applied two types of research methodologies, which are the quantitative and the qualitative method. So for the quantitative method, we have surveyed questionnaires with 10 questions that have been distributed to 30 respondents, mainly 20 students and 10 teachers. And for the qualitative method, we did interviews with the headmasters of SK Temai and SK Kampung Aceh. For the research areas, we have selected two schools, namely Sekolah Kebangsaan Temai and Sekolah Kebangsaan Kampung Aceh, as these two schools were badly affected by the flood disaster in Pekan, Pahang, almost in every flood incident. This research has contributed to two findings. The first findings is the impacts of flood disaster based on the students and the teachers' response. As you can see on the slide, the findings has indicated that about 66% of the respondents felt that the flood had a tolerable impact to the students' education, which means most victims can still survive and cope with the teaching and learning even while facing the flood disaster. And about 47% of the respondents stated that the feeling of uncomfortable at school after the flood disaster is because of the unhygienic environment at school, and this makes them not comfortable to study and teach at the place. And due to the impacts of flood disaster to the teaching and learning process, most respondents, about 38% of the respondents, felt that the delayed school reopening is very significant due to the comparing to the disruption of the infrastructures and the school facilities and loss of personal belongings. And luckily, about 71% of the respondents agreed that their lessons in class continued as normal after the flood tragedy. So the second findings is the challenges in preparing, managing, and identifying the solutions to manage floods, based on the interviews we had with the two headmasters. So here we have three challenges to preparation and the management of the floods, that is the cleaning phases, catching up with the school syllabus, and the infrastructures and facilities maintenance. For the first challenge is the cleaning phases. Based on the interviews with the two headmasters, Sekolah Kebangsaan Temai finds difficulty in the cleaning phases since the Temai district is badly affected compared to the Aceh area. This is because the Temai district is located in a low terrain area. So whenever they had to face a flood disaster, they had difficulties due to lack of manpower, cleaning supplies, and equipment to clean up the mess after the flood incidents.
Alright. For the second challenge is catching up with the school syllabus. Teachers there stress that year 1, 2, 3, and 4 students will have to attend online classes while waiting for the cleaning process to complete and done upgrading the furnitures and so on. For year 5 and year 6 students, they will have to attend temporary classes at evacuation centers or unaffected schools. These students will have to sit for examinations such as USA for year 6 and UPKK for year 5. For the third challenge is maintaining the school infrastructures and facilities. Many school furnitures and facilities were found destroyed or damaged due to the flood. Hence, local authorities will give an early briefing about how to avoid those furnitures and facilities being further destroyed. Schools then will take early actions such as moving the furnitures to higher ground, but due to the frequent occurrence of flood, moving the furniture repeatedly will cause severe damage to the structures. Alright, for the preparation and management that were applied by the schools are provide quality education, preserve school infrastructures and facilities, and constant involvement of the community. Okay, for quality education, the stakeholders including district officers, headmasters, Jabatan Pengairan dan Saliran and so forth must play their roles. First, they must identify vulnerable schools and delay the school reopening to settle the cleaning process. Second, they must allocate backup educational materials by keeping digital and physical backups for USA and KFA examinations. Third, they must conduct regular evacuation and emergency drills with teachers and students. And last but not least, they must ensure students to catch up on the missed lessons.
For the school infrastructures and buildings, the schools must be installed flat barriers and drainage system to protect school premises. Also, the school buildings and infrastructures such as toilets, classroom, libraries, and labs must be elevated above expected flood levels and the infrastructures to withstand flood waters. Finally, for the community involvement, there must be involvement among the local communities and district education office by having gotong royong in education of natural disasters. Also, there must be a collaboration between parents association, non-governmental organizations, volunteers, and international bodies for technical and financial support and supplies. Both schools are so grateful as they always get assisted by volunteers from local universities such as UMP, UIA, and UITM. Local community is very concerned with the difficulties faced by the schools. To conclude, effective preparation and management of flood disasters are crucial and mandatory to maintain the quality and continuity of education in all communities, regardless of gender, race, ethnic, and religion. Schools can increase their resilience against floods by conducting risk assessment, reinforcing infrastructure, allocating necessary resources, and integrating technology. Our research recommends that there must be a proactive approach from school administrations to local communities, which can ensure the students can continue the quality education even in the face of natural disasters. That's all from our team. Thank you. Now we invite questions from the floor.
I would like to invite participants to ask the questions. Now, I would like to invite the judges to ask the questions.
Okay, thank you, presenters. When we talk about this topic, one thing in my mind is on the business contingency plan, BCP, because flood is about we are mitigating the risk, so we are talking about risk management concept. So my question is, Does this, while you performing this study at Pahang, is there any business contingency plan in order to mitigate the risk?
Come again, please. Sorry.
Overall presentation is about risk management. So when we look at this, my question is more on the business contingency plan in order for them to mitigate the risk.
That's basically there is no business contingent that in order to maintain the risk.
There are businesses from outside the country, but from Pekan, Pahang, there's no businesses. Does that answer your question?
Pekan is small district. Pekan is a small district.
Okay.
Is there anything that can be done by the flood management scheme? What are you doing with the flood management? Your extraction can be done by the proper flood management scheme, which should be planned and should be strengthened to deal with such ever-ending disaster. So, can you elaborate further? Is there any flood management
Flood management skip now. Macam mana nak manage flood, cari yang lain lah. Cakap.
All right. Okay. I would like to ask another question. All right. This one is regarding part of your extract mentioning to identify the challenges faced by the affected schools in preparing. Can you tell what ways or what challenges that has been mentioned, okay, to prepare public, okay, to face a flood scenario, for example?
Example of challenges that faced by the two schools is, first of all, cleaning faces. Since the flood are just not in one day only, they're like floods are floods is like they had to face the flood for like sometimes a month, sometimes like many weeks. So they had so many cleaning phases to be done by them. So due to they are actually schools that is in terms of SKM, Sekolah Kurang Murid, they had the lack of manpower to clean the schools in such a short term. So they needs so they had to seek for the help from the government and the non-governmental, and also they need to delay the school opening as well.
Thank you for the informative presentation.
Test.
Now, let's hear from the fifth team, Sekolah Menengah Sains, Tuanku MUNAWIR, to present.
Sir David Attenborough once said, "The fact remains that man has unprecedented control over the world and everything in it. And so, whatever happens next is very largely up to him."
For most of human history, Earth's climate has been relatively stable, but the Industrial Revolution marked a turning point as climate change
significantly influenced by
the atmosphere.
Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day or a very hot day, I bid to everyone here. I'm Syed.
And I'm Imran, and we are representatives of HAJI's heritage to untangle the complex problem of the Anthropocene. But before moving on to our research background, we have some key phrases we need to define.
So for the first key phrase, it's on the word of the Anthropocene. It is defined as a geological epoch characterized by significant human influence on Earth systems, including climate and ecosystems.
As for climate apocalypse, it is a scenario where unchecked climate change leads to catastrophic environmental, social, and economic collapse, characterized by extreme weather events, resource scarcity, widespread displacement, and severe biodiversity loss.
So now let's move on to the research background. A climate apocalypse is a major problem that will affect the planet in many ways. First and foremost, I would like for you to picture a family walking down the coastal city street, looking at the beach with concern. Rising sea levels threaten coastal cities and communities. This can lead to displacement as people are forced to leave their own homes.
Now imagine a farmland in drought conditions and a farmer who's looking at his dry crops with a worried expression. Droughts can have a devastating impact on agriculture. This can lead to food and water insecurity as there's less food to eat and less water to drink.
Now visualize a group of firefighters battling a large forest fire. Extreme heat waves can also lead to more wildfires. This can damage ecosystems and endanger wildlife.
Now picture a colorful reef with many fishes. Biodiversity loss reduces the resilience of ecosystems towards environmental changes. This means that they are less able to cope with the impacts of climate change.
Did you know that the average global temperature has been rising for the past century? In this presentation, we'll cover the following. What are the causes of the Anthropocene? What are the effects of the Anthropocene towards climate change and human civilization? And lastly, what can we do to mitigate the ongoing problem of the Anthropocene? And And lastly, by the end of the presentation, you will be equipped with some ideas on how we can mitigate this ongoing problem.
For our research methodology, we use a qualitative method, mainly meta-analysis, where we conducted a case study by reviewing official articles and scholarly literature from acknowledged sources. And secondly, content analysis, where we approach research findings through content analysis, through categorizing and defining found topics.
The information presented here was compiled from a variety of credible sources. This includes data from NASA themselves, National Geographic, and findings and published research papers from experts in the field were also incorporated.
Roughly 4 out of 10 adults globally around the world have never heard of climate change before. That's up to 2 billion people. Additionally, 1 in 5 people around the world aren't aware that human activity causes climate change. Now, the causes that are the roots of the Anthropocene. Firstly, large-scale tree removal reduces CO2 absorption, leading to higher atmospheric CO2 levels and climate instability, as trees are the ones that absorb CO2 to be turned into oxygen. It also harms biodiversity and it disrupts ecosystems.
Greenhouse gases such as CO2, CH4, and NO2 are trapped in the atmosphere, driving climate change with far-reaching effects on weather, sea levels, and ecosystems.
Lastly are the burning of fossil fuels and biofuels. Both fossil fuels and biofuels contribute to climate change, air pollution, habitat loss, and ecosystem disruption. The combustion releases CO2 and pollutants, leading to environmental damage, biodiversity loss, and resource depletion.
But what are the implications, impacts, or effects that we can see right now? The graph you're seeing here shows the difference between Earth's average temperature today and the average temperature in 1880. Scientists call this difference the temperature anomaly. The higher the line is on the graph, the warmer things are compared to 1880. As you can see here, the line from 1880 has been slowly rising. What does this mean? This means that Earth's average temperature has been slowly rising.
This warming trend is what scientists believe marks the beginning of a new geological epoch called the Anthropocene. Now, the line that goes by 2034 here shows what scientists predict will happen in the future. They call this a projection. This projection shows that Earth's average temperature is expected to keep rising if the current trend continues.
So what does this mean for us? Sea level rise is caused by the melting of glaciers, ice sheets, and the overall global thermal expansion of the oceans. Sea level rise can have a number of devastating impacts on megacities. It can inundate low-lying areas, it can displace millions of residents, and finally, it can destroy vital infrastructure. But not just that, it can also salinate freshwater supplies, making it unusable for drinking and irrigation.
Now, in this slide here, we have two examples of megacities that are already being affected by sea level rise, Tunis and Jakarta. Tunis is an ancient Egyptian city that was submerged by the Mediterranean Sea around 800 BC, while Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia. It is currently sinking at a rate of several centimeters per year. Now, we know that Tunis is not a city that is specifically because of climate change, but it is definitely a representation of a fate we do not wish on any modern day cities.
Climate is just like a giant recipe with many ingredients. And if you change one part, it can affect everything else. Let's start with tiny water droplets. The sun heats up Earth's water, causing some of it to evaporate and rise to the sky. Winds carry this moisture around the world, but it falls as rain or snow. This journey is also called moisture recycling.
Now, this journey is moisture recycling. It's like a superhighway for water. Now, imagine this superhighway changing. Now, scientists are afraid that climate change would alter weather patterns, affecting how much moisture travels where. This could disrupt the balance between ecosystems around the world. Now, a forest biome might need a certain amount of rain to thrive. If the climate changes the amount of rain that falls there, the biome might need to move to a new location to survive. This is called biomigration.
Moisture recycling teleconnections significantly influence biomigration, altering the distribution of ecosystems as water vapors shift across regions. This can lead to outcomes such as harsh environmental conditions as climate change affects the precipitation patterns and water availability. For example, this affects farmers and herders in the Sahel as it makes it harder for them to plan their livelihoods.
Now, last but not least, stranded assets. Stranded assets are investments or resources that have lost value or turn into liabilities due to external changes. These external changes can be things like regulatory shifts, market dynamics, or environmental factors. But today, we want only to focus on the environmental factors. For instance, properties in coastal areas might become stranded assets as sea levels rise and increase the risk of flooding, rendering them unsellable and uninsurable. Additionally, in agriculture, farmland dependent on irrigation might become stranded if water sources dry up due to climate change, making the land unsuitable for cultivation.
To end our research now, we will now provide a few possible solutions to be implemented in status quo. First and foremost, implementing a national policy on climate change serves as a framework to mobilize and guide government agencies, industries, as well as communities and other stakeholders in addressing the challenge of climate change in a holistic and concerted manner. For example, here, one of the few examples here is the US policy in the reduction of hydrofluorocarbons. The reduction of hydrofluorocarbons. Hydrofluorocarbons, also known as HFCs, are potent greenhouse gases primarily used in refrigeration and air conditioning. The policy aims to cut down 85% reduction or consumption of HFCs in 15 years. And this aligns with the goal set by the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act, which aims to reduce the global warming in 2100 by 0.5 degrees Celsius.
Next, let's look at the solution on the top. First one, this one, it says about government should invest more in R&D or research or development. Basically, R&D, research and development, is basically like inventing new things to solve problems. So, for example, scientists and engineers could develop new technologies to capture carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or reduce the pollutants. Now, the bottom is reforestation and afforestation. Afforestation is basically planting new trees in areas that never had trees before, while reforestation is planting trees in areas that had trees but have been cut down. Now, trees absorb carbon dioxide, so planting more trees basically reduces the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Last but not least, public awareness serves as a foundation for addressing these challenges at hand. By educating the public about the Anthropocene and its consequences, we can empower them to take measures in order to solve the problem at hand. The image you see here depicts the three main pillars of public awareness. Number one is education, second is media and communication, and lastly is community. Understand that all of these three pillars are all crucial in raising awareness about the Anthropocene and fostering a sense of collective responsibility for the care of our planet.
And finally, in a nutshell, the sustainability of the climate plays a pivotal role in shaping our world in the foreseeable future. It influences biodiversity, natural resources, the frequency of unusual weather events, and the overall sea level. Addressing these challenges must be done to ensure a healthier and more stable environment for the generations to come. By joining hands to combat this worrying dilemma together, we can lighten the impacts and nurture a more resilient world.
And to quote Sir David Attenborough again, we are at a unique stage in our history. Surely we all have a responsibility to care for our planet. Understand that the future of humanity, and indeed all life on Earth, now depends on us.
That is all. Thank you for lending your ears.
I would like to invite the participants to...
All right. All right, thank you so much for the very detailed presentation. So you have said something about the solutions about the functions or the policymakers, right? So would you give like an example of how poor governance of a country or a body or a community or even a company leads to the increase in like climate change?
So I'm trying to clarify, you're saying that you're trying to ask me how poor governance leads to the increase of climate change in a certain country.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, in this reason, we are only giving a solution. We gave an example on how US implemented some sort of incentive for them to implement in their own country. We are giving this as a solution for other countries to take inspiration and and implement it in their own country. Countries with poor governance can still be influenced by their people. Understand that the voices of the people are still relevant in status quo, because democracy is what we prioritize in status quo. Thank you. I hope that answers. Yeah, back there.
I'm sorry, no more Q&As. Thank you for the thought-provoking. Thank you for the presentation.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That's okay.
1, 2, 3. Yes. Center.
Now, I would like to invite the last team for today, Sekolah Mendengar Agama Persekutuan Labu, to present.
Did you know that floods are responsible for 90% of natural disasters around the world? And with climate change increasing heavy rainfall events, that number is expected to rise? Hello and Assalamualaikum to all. We are the representatives from SMAP LABU, and we're here to shed some light on climate change. Before that, I'd like to express my gratitude to the judges, the meticulous timekeeper, the moderator, and to all in the studio. To start things off, let us be familiar with today's topic, which is climate apocalypse, a collapse of human civilization. What is the meaning between these two sentences? Well, imagine a super bad case of climate change. So bad, it throws everything into chaos. Food gets scarce, weather gets crazy, people fighting over what's left. This could lead to the breakdown of entire civilization like a domino effect. Now with that out of the way, you all must be wondering why we chose flash flood as our main subject. Well, flash flood are the most common type of floods, which in return the most common type of natural disasters around the world. Just last year, there are 164 cases of floods reported, surpassing every other natural disasters. I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced it in some shape or form. Maybe you watched it on the news, or maybe you experienced it yourselves. Well, Malaysia is no different. Yearly occurrences of flash floods have caused Malaysians to lose their lives, properties, and livelihoods. The graph shown on the left exhibits that the frequency and the severity of floods are increasing year by year. Well, now let's move on to the causes of flash flood.
Well, the causes of flash flood can be attributed to a number of different factors, like constant heavy rainfall. The rainwater accumulates over time thanks to the poor drainage system, resulting in the rainwater to overflow into the streets, as this photo shows. And deforestation is also another factor, as the lack of trees can reduce the amount of water that can be absorbed by the soil, which means it will overwhelm drainage system, causing rivers and irrigation networks to overflow into nearby residential areas. Now, who is affected by it? We have boiled it down into 4 groups. Firstly, the government. They are the ones who spend the most when it comes to flood. Just this year, they have allocated 11.8 billion ringgit just for flood mitigation projects. They also need to compensate civilians and businesses affected by floods, like giving financial aid. Next up is the civilians. They are the majority of victims of floods. The one who lives near rivers and sea are the one who face the brunt of flood damage. Forced to flee their homes, they seek refuge in crime emergency shelters, desperately needing food, clothes, and essential supplies. After that, the business owners. Usually during floods, businesses cannot operate in that situation. That leads to a loss in revenue. This may be fine for big businesses, but what about the small ones? And lastly, farmers. Floods are especially devastating to farmers, as vulnerable crops can get swept away in an instant, leaving them with nothing to harvest and their income vanishing overnight. Farmers who are just able to get by will be devastated by the loss of income.
Wait, Aling, what are the effects of said floods?
Well, the effects of flood can be summarized into 3 points. The first one is forests and habitats. Floods can be really tough on animals and trees. They can drown animals and even rip out trees by strong currents. This could damage the whole forest, wiping out animals and trees alike. This could also cause landslides, which causes geographical structures or changes to the forest, wiping out habitats in the process. Next up is infrastructures. Roads and bridges are especially vulnerable to be damaged or destroyed by floods. This can disrupt transportation, which is incredibly important for post-flood recovery process like rescue missions or giving aid to flood victims who desperately need it. And lastly, economy. There's no doubt that the economy is severely impacted by floods. Businesses closing down, farms flooded leading to agricultural losses, and infrastructure rebuilding cost the government a lot of money. Recently in 2022, the losses attributed to floods is estimated to be around 622.7 million ringgit. If it does not alarm you to you all, I don't know what is. Well, Alif, where are the places usually affected by floods?
Well, floods occurs throughout all of our nation, but according to the data that we have discovered, there are 2 states which often experiences flood. One of them being is Selangor, precisely Klang Valley. Why do we say this? Well, this is because the coast of Peninsular Malaysia are the most prone to flooding, especially during the northeast monsoon season from October to March, merging the Gombak River with the Klang River. For example, the flood event in Shah Alam was so devastating that the buildings in the affected areas are submerged to the top. The other state is Kelantan. This is because Kelantan is famous for its severity of floods. This is a result of mismanagement of funds, excessive loggings, and also a poor drainage system. To illustrate, the drainage in Tumpat were not developed accordingly. Pasir Mas and Kota Baru in particular bore the heaviest impact of floods.
Well, Alif, I've said that the economy takes a hit from floods. What are the statistics?
Well, if you look at the chart here, you'll find that based on the 2022 flood event, the government has lost a significant amount of money, which is around 622.7 million ringgit. That can be right, can it? Well, bad news it is. On public assets and infrastructures, such as roads, hospitals, and airports alone, the government has lost around 232.7 million ringgit. For instance, most of the schools in Hulu Langat and Kuala Lumpur are badly destroyed because of the floods. And that doesn't even include other things yet, such as living quarters and agricultures. For case in point, paddy fields and veggies acreages in Pasir Mas were inundated, bringing production to a halt. Business premises also took a toll. For example, most of the shop stores and owners in around Klang Valley were forced to close down their premises and would not be able to operate in the foreseeable future. So from here, we can safely say that floods do indeed collapse human civilization if we don't do something quick. Well, what are the measures that we can take to prevent this? Our first plan is to mitigate the effect of floods. Mitigation is an important starting point, so it could lead us to thousands more solutions. We chose to mitigate the effect of floods by the structural ways, such as reservoirs and levees. But is that all there is? Well, that's where our second plan comes in, which is by developing Sponge City. It is essentially an urban development concept designed to manage water sustainably by enhancing the city's capacity to absorb, store, and purify rainwater. How can we achieve this? Well, first of all, we can increase green spaces by adding more parks, trees, or other greenery. This can help us absorb rainwater and remove pollutants from it. Other than that, we can also build blue-green roofs on every building. Blue-green roofs comprises different layers of type of soils with distinctive characteristics that can act as a natural filtration system. By this, we can collect rainwater from rooftops and use it for various purposes. Last but not least, we can also incorporate permeable pavements using permeable materials such as granite and clay bricks. This can help us increase the amount of rainwater seep into the ground rather than running off into ledges and resulting in floods. Take China, for example. They have set ambitious goals to transform 80% of its urban cities into sponge cities by 2030. Now, for our third and final plan is to build underground irrigation tunnel. The main concept behind this is to make a vast network of tunnels underground, connecting main cities to the nearest source of water, such as the rivers and the sea. The purpose of this is to divert all of that floodwaters away from residential areas. Yes, it will be time consuming and will cost a fortune to build this, But in my point of view, it's better to spend some money now rather than losing millions of it later on. Phew, that was intense. Should I have something to say, Almi?
Of course, Alif. And finally, what is the conclusion? Well, we can conclude that climate change does indeed cause the collapse of civilization. Well, that's a little short, ain't it? But that is the reality of our world today. Just take, for example, Tuvalu, where over 40% of the country landmass is already below sea level. The country is set to completely disappear in 50 to 100 years. Now, how can we go ahead? Well, the first point is collaboration. Collaboration is key in resolving this issue. Everyone must strive to protect the lives of everyone, regardless of their backgrounds, as lives are always worth saving. We must also make the world a better place for generations to come. Yes. And finally, this is our sources based on our findings for the results. That's all from us. Thank you all so much for lending us your ears, and Assalamualaikum.
Now, I would like to invite participants to ask questions.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Just one question regarding your solutions, right? I heard of sponge cities and water irrigation tunnels, right? My question is, how can you imply these solutions onto developing countries where usually they are the cause of carbon emissions and whatnot? So can you please tell me that?
Okay. So you're basically saying that how can developing countries include these solutions? Well, that is why we need to have stepping points in place. For developing countries, maybe they don't have the resources to make this a reality. So maybe they can just plant more trees, and maybe the underground irrigation, maybe they can just build more irrigation networks to divert the flood water. Yes, they are the most causes of CO2 emissions. That's why we need to build these developing countries. We need to increase the GDP so that they can they can reduce the amount of CO2 emissions that they can make.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much.
Now, I would like to invite the judges to ask the questions.
Okay, in your slide just now, you mentioned about in Kelantan, one of the causes of flood is the mismanagement of fund.
Yes.
Can you explain further?
Yes, well, hate to say it, but most of the governments in Kelantan have been proved to mismanagement in the funds that have been collected. So they use it for another purpose, but they did not use for floods development. So by this, they have increased the statistics that Kelantan will flood. And then it will lose the civilians' trust in the government. So that is why we said that the government is management on floods is one of the reason why Kelantan is famous for its severity of floods. This is because of the result of using the funds for other purposes, and then it also could be for anti-trustworthy of the government. So yes, hate to say it, but it is one of the
factors.
Effects, the floods.
Another question?
Beside the sponge city, based on your concept, is there any ideas on the green building or the smart city concept in order to curb this thing?
Well, smart city concept.
What makes things different between your smart city and with the green building or smart city?
So how can we incorporate smart city into Malaysia? That's it, okay? All right. So we have many sources that we can look from the Netherlands and China, just as we do.
So like in the Netherlands, they make multi-purpose parks. They can be used regularly for civilians to enjoy like biking, skateboarding and other such. But when worst comes to worst, they can be, how do you say this? They can act like a reservoir for rainwater, so that the rainwater accumulates there and not overflow into nearby residential areas. We can also incorporate ponds into the middle of cities. You can like also act as a reservoir, and also plant trees, so we can reduce the CO2 emissions.
Thank you for your presentation.